I knew something was off with Ethan when I opened his lunchbox one evening and found it sparkling clean. He said his coworker, Lily, had washed it for him and told me not to overthink it. I didn't respond, only calculated how soon I could move out. I'd first heard Lily's name 2 months prior. Ethan had been recounting the day's events at dinner, excitedly describing a new colleague. Natalie, he'd said, a hint of unusual attentiveness in his voice, that new girl carries the same bag as you. When had he become so observant? A flicker of unease went through me. What's her name? I asked. Lily, he'd replied, a smile playing on his lips. Fresh out of college, a bit clueless. He hadn't noticed the smile, but I had. I'd glanced at him, maintaining a neutral expression as I served myself some food. But the subtle discomfort lingered, dampening my spirits. I thought. This must be what marriage is like, the fiery passion of love reduced to the embers of familial comfort, a left hand intimately familiar with the right. Ethan and I had met in college, during freshman orientation. I'd fainted from heatstroke and encountered him in the infirmary, nursing a soccer injury. He always claimed it was love at first sight, that he'd relentlessly pursued me. We were on the verge of transitioning from cap and gown to wedding dress. Ethan had been planning to propose. He'd already secretly retrieved the ring and was busily orchestrating a surprise, though he'd been far from subtle. He seemed to have forgotten that his credit card was linked to my phone, alerting me to every purchase. Everything was progressing as expected, yet the memory of Ethan's smile when he mentioned Lily kept resurfacing, planting seeds of doubt. I'd observed him closely for a while, but he hadn't shown any other unusual behavior. He'd even complained about Lily's incompetence, claiming she was slowing down their project. My suspicions were reignited on my birthday. I noticed the ring box was missing from Ethan's study, so I dressed up, anticipating a proposal during our birthday dinner. The evening with friends ran late. Ethan received a call mid-meal and started checking his watch frequently. I assumed he was timing the proposal. But when we suggested karaoke, he excused himself, claiming a work emergency. I still believed it was a ruse, a part of his elaborate proposal plan. By the time my friends dropped me off, Ethan had only texted, telling me to go to sleep and not wait up. He'd been under a lot of pressure at work this year, and this wasn't the first time he'd chosen work over me. He hadn't even looked back, offering only the tired excuse, I'm working for our future. He seemed to have forgotten I'd never prioritized material things. Disappointment kept me awake. I told myself to be understanding, his team's project was in a critical phase. But a nagging voice whispered that our love was slowly fading. Just as I was drifting off, Ethan returned. He set his phone down and quietly went to the bathroom. My nascent sleep was shattered by the persistent buzzing of his phone. Intuition told me this message was significant. I unlocked his phone and saw 3 messages from a contact named Lily. Thanks for saving the day, boss. I owe you big time. I'd offer myself as repayment, haha. Just kidding. Heard. You're planning to propose. Sorry to interrupt, but make sure to invite me when you do it again. Gotta get the party started. And seriously, boss, you were so cool back there. I marked the messages as unread and turned over, feigning sleep. Their chat history was long, mostly harmless gossip and news articles, but Ethan's replies were engaged and attentive. In contrast, if I sent him something funny during his work hours, he'd usually reply with a curt busy or a perfunctory haha. I believed Ethan hadn't cheated, not physically, at least. But I spent the night wrestling with the question, if he proposed, should I say yes? Ethan got into bed after his shower, scrolled through his phone for a while, and finally typed a reply. 2 days later, I had another chance to check his phone. The conversation with Lily had been erased. While I was evaluating our relationship, Ethan received a promotion and decided to celebrate with his team. Finally, I met Lily. She wasn't the clueless girl Ethan had described. During dinner, she complimented my cooking, specifically praising the braised fish. I prepared lunch for Ethan and myself every day. Was she subtly letting me know they shared lunches? I smiled noncommittally. Ethan, oblivious, chimed in, Natalie loves to fuss over food. Watching him interact with his colleagues, I struggled to recall why I'd agreed to date him in the first place. Had it truly been love? That night, Ethan got incredibly drunk. On the way home, he slurred repeatedly about marrying me. I humored him, and once we arrived, I left him on the couch and went to bed. The next morning, he woke me up, complaining, "Natalie, you left me on the couch all night?" His messy hair and the stale stench of alcohol on his breath made me nauseous. Perhaps our love truly had vanished. It was in that moment I decided to leave him. I knew breaking up directly would lead to endless pleading, it was his specialty. Plus, he was comfortable in our routine. A meticulous planner. Like Ethan wouldn't easily stray. I needed a public, undeniable reason to leave, something that would make it impossible for him to pursue me. So when he asked if I could pack an extra lunch for Lily, I knew my opportunity had arrived. "Lily says your cooking is amazing," he'd explained. "She's a young girl and doesn't know how to cook. Just think of it as us looking out for her." He sounded like a benevolent elder, yet Lily was only 2 years younger than me. I agreed, even making a point of including braised fish once a week. But when the clean lunchbox returned, I knew. Ethan was cheating. From acquaintance to affair, it had taken a mere 2 months, making our 6-year relationship feel like a cruel joke. "Look at that, a clean lunchbox today. Impressive," I said, fixing Ethan with a pointed stare. I didn't miss the flicker of guilt that crossed his face. He cleared his throat. "Lily washed it. She was thanking me for bringing her lunch. Saves you the trouble, right?" I smiled, saying nothing. He was lying. Their office didn't allow dishwashing at the sinks. I'd learned that tidbit from his colleagues at their company party last year. So where had Lily washed the lunchbox? And had she washed Ethan as well? If the lunch request had been a test, the clean lunchbox was a blatant provocation. This was getting interesting. I continued playing along, even praising Lily's diligence whenever the clean lunchbox appeared. Ethan, perhaps driven by guilt or a condescending sense of male superiority, became increasingly attentive. He pitted me, his unsuspecting girlfriend. A little over a month passed between the first clean lunchbox and Lily's friend request. Ethan had brought home several gifts, claiming they were thank you presents from Lily. I accepted them graciously, pretending to be oblivious to their charade. Ethan spent nearly all his non-working hours with me, even cutting back on overtime. Their trysts, then, must have been during lunch breaks. Lily, seemingly impatient with my nonchalance, contacted me directly, expressing a desire to thank me for the lunches. I claimed to be busy, mentioning that her previous gifts were already too generous. But when she unilaterally suggested a time and place, I realized she was taking matters into her own hands. She chose a tea house near Ethan's office, one with private rooms, and scheduled it during their lunch break. "Heard your office is nearby too, sis. Let's do lunch," she texted. "You're not too busy for lunch, are you, sis?" I couldn't help but smile. This girl had spirit. I was genuinely busy, however. My company was bidding on an international project. Besides, it wasn't time for our confrontation yet. I preferred to control the tempo. I agreed to the meeting, then casually mentioned it to Ethan during dinner. "Your coworker is funny," I said. "A few lunches and she's already showered me with gifts and now wants to meet for lunch. She only invited me, by the way." Ethan dropped his soup bowl. I handed him a napkin and continued, "Seems a bit much, don't you think?" The following afternoon, Lily messaged, claiming a sudden business trip and postponing our meeting. "Don't be mad, sis," she wrote. "Ethan just sprung this trip on me. Men, am I right? Always changing their minds." I replied with a smiley face emoji. Lily had been temporarily appeased, or perhaps appeased. The underlying taunt in her message irked me, so I screenshotted it and sent it to Ethan. Her petty games would surely rattle his guilty conscience. She didn't understand that while Ethan might be infatuated with her, he would never allow an affair to be the reason for our breakup. He was far too image-conscious. Whether he was the cheater or the cheated on, he would keep it hidden. Lily's actions were a direct challenge to his pride. And me? I was merely forwarding a message. What could be more innocent? I simply wanted to make them squirm. Ethan's response was predictable. He claimed Lily was disgruntled over a work conflict and was trying to sabotage our relationship. I feigned belief. I didn't care about their relationship. If Ethan had ended things cleanly, I wouldn't have clung on. But his deceitful behavior, coupled with Lily's brazen attempts to provoke me, fueled my desire for retribution. So I occasionally dropped hints, a question about the perfume on his clothes, an inquiry about Lily's work performance, just to keep him on edge, to let him savor the thrill of a near exposure. The following weeks were busy and fulfilling. My company secured the international project, and I, as a member of the team, would be relocating abroad in 3 months for 3 to 5 years. I decided to accelerate my plan, to end our 6-year relationship with a resounding bang. That's when Jason showed up, with a stack of photos. He spread them out on the table, Ethan and Lily embracing, kissing, and more. My surprise was genuine. I hadn't expected Ethan to be so careless, nor had I anticipated Jason's appearance. We'd briefly known each other in college, when I joined the music club he presided over. After the club disbanded, we'd lost touch. I vaguely remembered him on stage at a college event, his drumming eliciting screams from the audience. His sudden reappearance, armed with evidence of Ethan's infidelity, felt strangely orchestrated. "Do you want revenge?" he asked, a flicker of something unreadable in his handsome features. "I can help." "No," I sobbed, playing the role of the heartbroken, naive girlfriend. "I don't believe it. Ethan loves me." "The photos are right here," he sighed. "Why are you so blind?" Then, he added, "I've always kept an eye on you, Natalie." That stopped my crying. I looked up at him, feigning astonishment, encouraging him to elaborate. "Natalie," he began, a nostalgic smile softening his strong jawline, revealing a dimple on his right cheek. "I fell for you the moment you walked into the music club with your guitar. But you had a boyfriend then, so I never interfered." Despite my reasonable attractiveness, I'd never imagined Jason, the campus heartthrob, had harbored a secret crush. This was a plot twist I wouldn't have dared to dream up. He left after giving me the photos and his contact information. He didn't explain how he'd obtained the photos or offer specific revenge strategies. Something felt off about his timing. Curiosity won, and I added him on WeChat. When I asked how he discovered Ethan's affair, he explained he'd been in the area for a client meeting, had lunch with the client at the same tea house, and happened to see them. He initially assumed Ethan and I had broken up and intended to pursue me. Discovering Ethan's infidelity, he'd hired someone to follow them and gather evidence. "Natalie," he messaged later, "if you want revenge, I'm here for you." He'd brought up revenge again. "You mean like a revenge affair?" I replied. "No, thank you." I understood his implication and shut it down immediately. I didn't want him to expose Ethan's infidelity yet. The impending drama required an audience. What fun would it be without witnesses? He agreed and stopped pushing the revenge narrative, instead focusing on pursuing me. My 6-year relationship with Ethan had lost its initial spark. Aside from holidays, he wasn't particularly romantic. Jason, in contrast, was like a blazing fire, rekindling a dormant part of me. Any woman would be flattered by the attention of such a handsome man, and I was no exception. Ethan only noticed something was amiss when I started bringing home flowers for several days in a row. I didn't hide it, telling him someone was pursuing me. My honesty, paradoxically, reassured him. He even joked, "Natalie, if you want flowers, just ask me. I'll buy them for you. Don't buy them yourself. You look pathetic." Men, I realized, believe what they want to believe. Even when faced with the truth, he'd convinced himself I was being coy. Perhaps to reassure me, or perhaps because the novelty of his affair was wearing off, Ethan's interactions with Lily seemed to decrease. She'd actually been sent on that business trip. I only learned of her return today, from her social media post. Seeing Ethan meticulously dressed this morning, claiming a client meeting, I deduced they'd be having lunch at the tea house. So I arranged to meet Jason there, intending to reject his advances and simultaneously stage a scene for Ethan and Lily. Jason was undeniably charming, well-dressed, and articulate, yet a nagging unease persisted. Today's lunch had a dual purpose, to rattle Ethan and Lily, and to probe Jason's motives. "We're late," Jason said, glancing at his phone. "They've already gone upstairs, to a private room." "It's fine," I replied. "Is your associate still watching them?" He looked uncomfortable, then nodded. "I'll call him off if you want." "Whatever you say." I ignored his offer, urging him to eat. I called Ethan repeatedly throughout our meal, but he didn't answer. Apparently, absence had made the heart grow fonder, and they were having a passionate reunion. "Don't cry," Jason said, awkwardly dabbing at my tears. "He's a scumbag. He doesn't deserve you." I'd thought I was over Ethan's betrayal. But sitting there, knowing he was upstairs in the throes of passion with another woman, a wave of anger and humiliation washed over me. Tears streamed down my face, and a wave of nausea sent me to the restroom. I didn't see Ethan and Lily that day. When I returned, Jason said they'd left. The coincidence was too perfect. I ate a few more bites, then firmly rejected Jason's advances. "You're not going to forgive him, are you?" he asked, his voice rising. He reached for my hand, but I sidestepped him. "I haven't seen it with my own eyes," I said. "I still can't believe Ethan would cheat." I turned and left, a picture of stubborn denial. Jason was definitely hiding something. But what was his endgame? To seduce me, ruin my reputation, and then what? I'd already rejected his advances. He still pursued me, wanting me to break up with Ethan. Who would benefit from that? Lily. Of course, it could all be a coincidence. Maybe Jason genuinely liked me and simply wanted me to be free to date him. But I didn't want to waste time analyzing his motives. Ethan and Lily's arrival and departure were based solely on Jason's account. Where was his associate? What was the actual situation? It was all hearsay. I was leaving for abroad in less than a month. I had no time for this. I had a parting gift to prepare for Ethan. He'd been in high spirits lately. His project had exceeded its KPI, and they were having a celebratory party on Friday. He hinted I should dress up, suggesting he was finally ready to propose. But surely Lily would find a way to prevent that. I wanted to write the final chapter of our breakup story myself, not by rejecting his proposal and tipping him off prematurely. My grand finale was fast approaching. At Friday's celebratory dinner, Ethan, brimming with confidence, delivered a triumphant speech and toasted his team. His colleagues, aside from discussing work, offered knowing congratulations on his double win, career success and impending nuptials. The atmosphere was ripe. I saw Ethan stand and reach into his pocket. My heart skipped a beat. Lily was still focused on her food, seemingly unaware. I coughed lightly. "Ethan, easy on the drinks." Lily's head snapped up. I was certain she'd seen the ring in Ethan's left hand. Dressed in a white dress, she rose to her feet, raising her glass. "A huge thank you to everyone for their support, especially Ethan. I've learned so much." Then, turning slightly towards me, she continued, her voice thick with emotion, "I'm so envious of you and Ethan's relationship, Natalie. Not like me, who got scammed by a jerk." And with that, she burst into tears, a perfectly timed performance that sent the entire table into a flurry of consolation. I watched Ethan slip the ring back into his pocket. Lily hadn't disappointed. The unnamed jerk, however, looked less than thrilled. Despite my anger and resentment, I hadn't intended to humiliate Ethan in front of his colleagues. I simply wanted our mutual friends, witnesses to our love story, to witness its ending as well. So, unbeknownst to Ethan, I'd contacted our friends, explaining my plan to stage a proposal and asking for their cooperation. We formed a group chat, Operation Proposal, assigning roles, videographer, decorator, etc. The date of this proposal would be determined by Lily. I knew Ethan's next attempt would send Lily into a frenzy. Exposing their affair would be her last-ditch effort to sabotage us. So, I texted her, "Lily, is Ethan in the office at lunchtime? Thinking of surprising him." He. Her reply was swift. Ethan was at a client meeting off-site. She offered to keep me updated on his whereabouts. I readily accepted. On Friday evening, Lily informed me Ethan would be at the tea house for his lunch break on Saturday. Ethan told me he had to work on Saturday. I told him my friend had invited me for a hike and encouraged him to focus on work. Basking in his recent successes, he'd forgotten that Saturday was our 6-year anniversary. I announced the time and place in the group chat. It was time to reveal my green hat to the world. If playing the heartbroken victim was what it took, I could play the part. At 12:40 p.m. on Saturday, Lily texted, "Ethan was in room 513. The key card was under the doormat. Lily was certainly helpful. I led our friends upstairs, smiling brightly at the camera. Okay, here we go. Opening the door. So nervous for my first proposal. The beep of the key card was followed by unmistakable sounds from within, a woman's moans mingling with a man's gasps. We froze. My face drained of color. Maybe it's the wrong room. A woman's startled cry echoed from inside. Ethan, I think the door opened. My friends pushed me forward. Ethan scrambled to cover himself, completely ignoring Lily beside him. I'd been so blind. I tossed the bouquet and veil at his feet. Ethan, we're done. Turning to my friends, I forced a smile. Sorry for the spectacle. Thank you all for coming. Tears welled in my eyes as I walked away, a dignified exit, without a glance back at the tangled mess on the bed. My friends rushed to comfort me. Ethan remained on the bed, ashen-faced and silent. Before heading to the tea house, I'd packed my belongings and left them with a colleague. With a little over a week before my departure, I planned to visit my parents and avoid Ethan. I didn't want to hear his justifications or witness his desperate attempts to reconcile. A clean break was best. To become a ghost of his past was my final expectation. As I stepped out of the tea house, I saw Jason leaning against his car. He strode towards me, gently wiping away my tears. Do you believe it now? Don't cry for him, Natalie. He's not worth it. Your associate, is he still? I asked, my voice trailing off. He hesitated, then laughed. He's done for the day. He opened the car door. Get in. I'll give you a ride. We need to talk. Intrigued, I agreed. Just to the nearest subway station, thanks. Natalie, he began as he pulled away, I know Lily. I nodded, waiting for him to continue. He glanced at me, noticing my lack of reaction, and chuckled. You already knew, didn't you? That's why you were so cold to me. So, how much did she pay you? I asked, voicing my primary question. Jason didn't seem like someone who needed money. Why would he get involved in Lily's scheme? He paused for a moment before answering. It wasn't about the money. I did it because I like you. I wanted to get close to you. And? I pressed, staring at his hands on the steering wheel. And then you rejected me, he said, the dejection evident in his voice. He still hadn't revealed the specifics of his arrangement with Lily. Where are we going? I asked, realizing we were heading away from the city center. The subway station is back there. He smiled faintly. Let's get you out of the city for a while. You finally broke up with him. I should celebrate, shouldn't I? Jason drove me around the countryside all afternoon. The fresh air did clear my head. The next day, I headed straight to my parents' house. My arrival would have been perfect if Ethan hadn't been waiting at the train station. Natalie, he said. He looked older, his unshaven face a stark contrast to his usual polished appearance. I ignored him, but he trailed behind me, a picture of abject misery. I hadn't told my parents about the breakup yet. His presence created an awkward illusion of normalcy. I stopped at a fast food restaurant near the station. Let's get something to eat and talk. His eyes lit up. I dodged his attempt to take my bag and ordered 2 fried rice dishes. Natalie, he began as soon as we sat down, I was just momentarily confused. I was going to end things with her. I'm a jerk, I know. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want a chance to fix this. Hearing the cliché momentarily confused nearly made me laugh. So, cheating requires a breakup romp? I asked seriously, watching his face blanch. Ethan, I continued, there is no second chance. You don't get to pull a grand romantic gesture and win me back. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me. I thought the tea house fiasco had made my position clear, but clearly, he hadn't gotten the message. I needed to be brutally honest. There was no going back. When the food arrived, I stood up. Ethan, I hope we never see each other again. After 6 years, he knew me well enough not to follow. I enjoyed a few peaceful days at my parents' house, returning to the city the day before my flight. Lily contacted me for a meeting, which surprised me. She seemed to be doing well. After a sip of tea, she announced, "Natalie, I've resigned. I'm leaving town next month." I waited. She continued, seemingly unfazed by my silence. "I've thought about it a lot, and I've decided to tell you. I know Jason." That was it? Perhaps my skepticism was too obvious. She clarified, "He's my boss." Lily explained that she'd run into Jason after her first tea house rendezvous with Ethan. He'd asked for her contact information, flattering her. After she'd added him, he'd sent her the incriminating photos. He said he had no other demands, just that I keep seeing Ethan and occasionally provoke you, she finished, looking at me nervously. "How much did he pay you?" I asked, piecing together the puzzle. 50,000. And another 20,000 after you broke up with Ethan. She maintained her delicate demeanor. I actually liked Ethan, you know. But he was just playing around. He always planned to marry you. So, Ethan was just a heartless player. If he'd cheated for true love, I might have felt slightly better. "Aren't you afraid I'll expose you?" I asked, studying her smiling eyes. Her smile widened. "You won't. Besides, I'm leaving. I'm actually quite envious of you, Natalie. 2 men in love with you. Lucky girl. I could brew that particular tea as well." "I envy you more," I retorted. "Profiting handsomely from both men. Unlike me, who got the cheating and none of the compensation." We both laughed. As she was leaving, Lily confessed she initially liked Ethan but hadn't intended to cause trouble. It was only after realizing he wouldn't leave me, coupled with Jason's encouragement, that she decided to escalate things. "You didn't love Ethan anymore, did you?" she asked. Her question startled me. I stared at her, offering no reply. "You're so cautious," she sighed. "Fine. Jason said our arrangement ends after I ask you that question." So, it was Jason, after all. I waved goodbye. "Tell him to ask me himself." After meeting Lily, I found Ethan waiting for me outside my office building. "Just a few words, Natalie," he pleaded, seeing me turn to leave. I led him to a less crowded area. "Someone paid Lily to break us up, Natalie," he said, looking more composed today, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "It's the guy who sent you the flowers." "I know," I replied. "I know I messed up," he continued. "I just want to warn you. He's manipulative. Be careful." Feigning concern, hoping I'd soften, playing the long game. 6 years, and his tactics hadn't evolved. "That's irrelevant," I said. "We're broken up. Don't contact me again." I was in a hurry to pack. My flight was early the next morning. "Natalie, I can't live without you," he cried. The stares of passers-by intensified my annoyance. I hailed a cab and left without another word. Ethan couldn't even manage to be a decent ex. Disappointing. In the cab, I blocked Ethan on everything and started clearing out my phone. I hesitated at Jason's contact, deciding to leave it. A handsome face in my contact list couldn't hurt. I saw Jason's messages after landing. "You planned it all along, didn't you? And you kept it a secret from everyone. Natalie, I like you even more now." So, he'd just learned about my departure. I'd overestimated his "money can buy anything" power. Another message arrived, "Looking forward to seeing you again." I looked at my reflection in the airport window, a smile playing on my lips. Perhaps the story was just beginning. The project abroad was progressing smoothly, but the food was a struggle. So, when Jason visited again, I requested some specific spices. His face lit up. "Natalie, are you giving me a chance?" I tilted my head. "Maybe. You've been here a dozen times in 3 months. Is your job okay?" His smile deepened, his dimples more pronounced. "I have enough to take care of you for life, Natalie. Don't worry." He was a quick study in seizing opportunities. "By the way, Ethan contacted me. He wanted your address," he said, tossing a leaf into the park pond. I watched the ripples, my heart calm. "I see. You don't have feelings for him anymore, do you?" he asked, a recurring question. I'd never answered directly, partly because it was none of his business, partly as a deliberate tactic to keep him guessing. These past few months, the anticipation of his visits, the joy of seeing him, had made one thing clear: I was attracted to him. I wasn't afraid to move on, but I remained skeptical of his professed love at first sight. "Jason," I said, stopping to watch children playing nearby, "I never told you. The first time I saw you, I was holding an accordion." He froze, then laughed. "Natalie, what are you getting at? I genuinely like you. I have no ulterior motives." "Well, that's not entirely true. I do have one, you." I poked his dimple, unable to resist. "Really? But I was holding an accordion that day. Are you sure you have the right person?" He took my hand, turning his head away, his ears betraying a blush. "I have the right person. You bought that guitar at the Harmony Music Store. I even helped you choose it." That day, Jason described his version of our first encounter, a quick-witted, decisive girl in a music store, her eyes fixed on a guitar. He'd been helping out a friend who owned the store. He'd been struck by the contrast, a long-haired girl who looked like she should be playing a piano, buying a guitar. He'd been thrilled to see me again at the music club, thinking it was fate. But then Ethan had shown up to pick me up, and he'd backed off, content to observe from afar, watching our relationship progress through college. He spoke at length that day, analyzing his feelings. "Natalie, I never really considered marriage. I always felt there was too much to do, too much to experience, to share it with one person. But when I saw Ethan with that other woman, something about that first spark in college, it reignited." Before leaving, he asked for an answer on his next visit. I spent a long time thinking. 6 years with Ethan, from passionate beginnings to quiet routine, from enthusiastic responses to indifferent ha-has. I wasn't sure I had the courage to love so freely again. I'd become more calculating, more guarded. But if Jason was willing to meet me halfway, I was willing to try again. I hadn't expected Ethan to be the one to show up next, with my spices. It wasn't surprising he'd found me. After 6 years, he knew my colleagues. He looked at me with a strange mixture of emotions, anger chief among them. "You were with Jason all along, weren't you?" he accused. "You deliberately gave me the opportunity to cheat. You knew I was attracted to Lily. You packed 2 lunches. You were setting me up. And Lily took Jason's money. She was deliberately seducing me." Seeing him again, I felt only a profound sense of detachment. He still blamed everyone but himself. Perhaps he'd always been this way, and I'd simply been blinded by love. I didn't want to argue. Jason's smiling face flashed in my mind. "I'm not with Jason," I said. "But I've decided. I'm going to accept his offer. Thank you for helping me make up my mind." Then, I called Jason, right in front of Ethan. "Jason," I said, "I want to see you. As your girlfriend." I expected him to say he'd come see me later. Instead, I heard laughter and a chorus of "Hey, boss lady." Jason's amused voice came through the speaker. "Girlfriend," I accidentally hit speakerphone. I chatted with him for a few minutes, only noticing Ethan's departure after hanging up. He'd taken the spices with him. This was truly the end. I was certain Jason wouldn't allow another private encounter with Ethan after that phone call. Calling Jason had been impulsive, but perhaps love defied planning. Still, I blushed when Jason appeared at my door the next morning with a bouquet of tulips. "Natalie," he said, ignoring the phone call, "I've been holding on to these tulips for years, waiting to give them to you." He handed me the flowers and opened the car door, ready to take me to work. "Morning, girlfriend," he said as I settled into the passenger seat. The belated greeting made me blush even harder. I'd been so confident on the phone, but now, face to face, I could barely look at him. I stared at the tulips, gathering my courage. "Jason," I began, "I might need constant reassurance. My love, it's not pure. It's strategic. Do you still want me?" He didn't answer, pulling over to the side of the road. "Natalie," he said, his voice laced with mock exasperation, "how long are you going to test me?" He unbuckled his seatbelt, leaning closer. "So, tell me, what's the shelf life on your love? 3 years? 6? 10? I continued, fidgeting with the tulips. "Love," he said, taking my hand, his eyes sparkling, "is the most enduring romance. If you want to know, we can discover the answer together." I intertwined my fingers with his. One last question. Is there anything else I should know about Ethan's affair? He seemed to be waiting for this. Natalie, I haven't lied to you. I simply nudged him in the right direction. I gestured for him to start driving, but he held my hand tight. Natalie, he said, his voice serious, I don't care if this is a whim, or if you're just acting out of spite. But you got in my car. There's no turning back now. The only road ahead leads to marriage. Don't even think about anything else. I poked his dimple and nodded. I know, boyfriend. Now drive, or I'll be late. Jason, time will tell. I want to discover the shelf life of love with you.